What was the real deal for Growing Pains?
Well, that was the show that made me famous. However, what really made me famous is the fact that I had showed off my hooters, my cooter, and my pooter.
From the heart of Hollywood, it's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show with Patrick Labyorteaux.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Tonight's episode, Julie McCullough.
Patrick Labyorteaux Show. He's the one you gotta know.
Previously on Julie McCullough. Julie McCullough was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, but considers herself Southern, having lived in North Carolina, West Virginia, Florida, Louisiana, Missouri, and Texas. McCullough worked as a model in her teens when she was discovered by Playboy and became the February 1986 Playmate of the Month. McCullough found work in a number of television shows, including Max Headroom and The Golden Girls, and starred in Robin's Hood with actor-singer Honk Rick Springfield. She also appeared with my pal Danielle Brisbois in the film Big Bad Mama 2 and The Blob with my pregnant summer school girlfriend, Shawnee Smith. Julie's big claim to fame was playing Kirk Cameron's love interest, coincidentally named Julie, on Growing Pains in 1989. She appeared in 8 episodes until she was fired in 1990, which allegedly stemmed from Kirk Cameron's conversion to Christianity and his problem with her having a body and not enough clothes in Playboy. Cameron states that he did not call for her to be fired, but come on, he did, allegedly. After the Growing Pains scandal, McCullough made several television appearances on Beverly Hills 90210, Harry and the Hendersons, and Drexel's Class. In 2011, Julie and I made the film 2012 Ice Age, a ridiculous movie about an iceberg traveling at 200 miles per hour and freezing the world that is neither the film 2012 with John Cusack or the animated hit Ice Age with Ray Romano. It's just a sad reminder of the 10 days we spent filming in a steaming hot warehouse in Burbank while we pretended to be freezing. Thanks, Asylum. Julie now works as a stand-up comedian and performs at the Hollywood Improv and the Laugh Factory. This has been your Wiki in a Minute.
Okay, so this is going to be really fun because we are here with actress, stand-up, poet, and playmate, who I also know as my low-budget movie wife, Julie McCullough.
Hello,
Hey, Julie.
movie hubby.
How you doing?
I'm great.
Okay, so for those of you not in the know, all two of you, we did a movie called 2012 Ice Age.
Oh, 2 people. Hi, 2 people.
Yeah, that's the only 2 people that don't know exactly who we are. And so we did this movie 2012 Ice Age way back in 2011. And it was for a company called The Asylum, which we will get to.
Act 1, Beginnings.
What was the real deal for Growing Pains? I mean, here you are. We'll get to all the backstory, but you're on Growing Pains. It's a big break. And what happened? What happened?
Well, that was the show that made me famous. However, what really made me famous is the fact that I had showed off my hooters, my cooter, and my pooter.
Yeah, but you know what's so funny now? It's like literally there's no difference between probably what you did. By the way, I've actually never seen any of your Playboy stuff because once I started working with you, I couldn't do it. But knowing Playboy, it probably wasn't any different than some hot girl Instagram ad. There really wasn't any pornography. It was just a pretty girl with no clothes on.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, yeah. So
Yeah. I'm not ashamed of any of it. People always come at me and it's like, I don't know what it is. I'm not apologizing for anything I've done in my past. It's like, it's what I did. It's like, it was just part of my career and what I was doing at the time. I was a model. I, of course, grew up in a small town and moved around my whole life. And I never even seen a Playboy until they asked me to be in one. When to be in it, I was living in Texas at the time, and they asked me Girls of Texas pictorial that they were doing. And then they asked me to be on the cover, and I shot a couple covers. I shot one in Chicago and I shot one in Los Angeles. And that was my first trips that I took for Playboy. And it was just part of my career. I was a model at the time.
So when you were asked, I mean, we'll get to Growing Pains in just a second. When you were asked to be in Playboy,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously maybe you hadn't seen a Playboy, but had you heard of it? Did you know what it was? Did you know kind of what you were going to get yourself into?
I just knew that it was a magazine with naked girls. That's all I knew. I didn't know about it. And it was this local photographer that asked me to be in it. I had already shot photos with him, and his wife did the makeup, and I really liked them. They were really, really wonderful to me in my youth as a model. And they were the ones that asked me if I would be in it, and they showed me my very first Playboy. They showed it to me. I was like, let me go home and talk to my parents first, and see. And I went home, talked to my mom and dad about it, and immediately they were like, no, no, And then the
Right.
day, and I was like, okay, this is no. And then the very next day, they came back at me, and my dad was the one that set me down. And he said, look, it's not right for us to tell you what to do in life right now. He said, you're 19 years old. He said, you're going to have to go into the world and make it on your own. And if you do this, maybe you'll get to travel and do things that we can't give you. Maybe you'll make some money, things that we can't give you. And it's a career thing. And it's not right for us to tell you as a young adult. It's time for you to start making your own choices. We don't want you to do it, but if you do it, then we just want you to know that we'll support you. And that's what happened. Oh,
that sounds like a wonderful set of parents. And skipping ahead when they saw, I would imagine that I imagine they saw the layout.
Yeah.
What was their reaction after it all happened? Were they like, well, this wasn't as bad, or?
No, my dad didn't see the layout. I think my mom covered up all the parts for him. Like, he only saw my face. He wouldn't look at it. And
I guess I get that. Yeah.
So that, but they, my dad had a conversation with me when I was 30 years old, and he told me that he was very proud of me and what I'd done in my lifetime. And it was emotionally, it's a real big thing for me because he died literally like a year and a half later. And so I felt like I got that big pat on the shoulder from your parent, which we all want approval.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
The fact that he was proud of my choices and my career and my life made me very.
Well, we'll talk about a lot of this stuff, but yeah, that part of what is impressive about you is you were Playmate of the Centerfold, or what do they call it? Playmate of the Month, or?
Yeah. People say, oh, you used to be
Okay.
Playboy Bunny. I'm like, or Playboy Playmate. I'm like, no, there's no used to be. That's like saying, oh, the ex-senator. You don't say ex-senator. You just say senator.
Right.
What? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, you were a Playmate. There's no ex-Playmate. There's no.
Right. And so but not only were you a Playmate, because some girls, that's where it ends on their resume or Wikipedia, where it just sort of stops there. And so when your dad's talking about being proud of you, I get it, because it's not like you just did one thing and then never did anything else. You've had this great career.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. And I'm very excited to announce that we have a brand new class called Adult Weekly Class. Now, what is that? Now, that's a class that'll meet every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and you come in and you have an hour-long acting class with other students. It's very, very simple, very, very fun. So if you've ever wanted to be an actor or try it or just mess around, these classes are great. So the Adult Weekly Class is going to be every Wednesday at 5:30 Pacific. Now, come and check it out. It's going to be really fun. Go to workingactorschool.com. Check out the website. You can sign up for the class there. If you need any other information, there's a phone number and an email on the website. You can get it there. And we would love to have you come and try. Talk to you soon.
Act 2, Success.
So, okay, we're going to jump ahead. It doesn't make sense, but the thing that's so stupid to me is you were a Playmate, you were on the cover, and then you get cast for Growing Pains, and then they were surprised. But I want you to tell the story.
Yeah. Okay, first off, when I was a Playmate, we used to go to car shows. That was the thing that the Playmates did during the time. They would dress us all up in these, we all had identical black jumpsuits, and we would go to car shows to sign autographs. That's what the Playmates did in the 1980s. And I would car show, and with a whole group of playmates. And by far, I was the youngest one, and I looked the youngest. I looked like a teenager because I was 21 years old when I became a playmate, and I was.
Wait, why do you do this? Aren't you? You are a playmate, right? You're the real deal.
Became Playboy Playmate. I was young. I was 21 years old, and with a whole group of us, I had probably like a dozen girls at this car show signing autographs, and looking at all of them going across the whole, thing, us there signing autographs. I was the youngest looking one too. I mean, I still look like I was a teenager, just in high heels on some.
Right.
And Kirk Cameron and Alan Thicke were at that same car show, and it was in Pennsylvania, and they were, I think it was Pennsylvania. Shucks, it might have even been Rhode Island. I don't know. I did so many of them, they all blend in together, but I have pictures of it. I actually have photographs somewhere in my storage stuff of Kirk Cameron and I dancing together at night.
Oh my God.
They had Chubby Checker playing at that car show. And when he was singing the twist, Kirk Cameron and I got up and we were doing the twist in front of the stage with Chubby Checker. And Kirk,
oh my God.
Kirk and he had a friend there, and his mama was there, and he kept coming over. They kept coming to me because I was the one that looked like close to their age. They liked me out of all the girls there. And at one point, I remember seeing like the herd of like young girls coming across the whole car show, and looking. We're up on a stage, so I can see them coming across. But all I see is like the heads of all these young girls, and it was Alan Thicke, and he had Kirk on his shoulder, walking him through the car show crowd with him up on his shoulders like this, and Kirk's waving to me from across the car show floor. Walk over.
So did they remember any of this when you auditioned for the role, or was it just sort of like?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
No, because here's the thing: they kept coming over and asking me for autograph pictures. And we used to sign Playboy headshots. They were just headshots. We had some bikini shots as well, and that's what we used to autograph at the car shows. And so they kept coming. Him and his buddy kept coming over and getting autographs from me. And then when him and Alan walked Kirk over, it was because they wanted to ask if I was going to the Chubby Checker show, and I said yeah. So I met up with them to watch Chubby Checker and listen to him sing, and then Kirk and I got up and did the twist together. I have snapshots of that, of us dancing.
Oh man.
And so that's how I met Kirk Cameron, and he gave me his phone number at that car show and asked me if I would come and watch one of the shows, like if I wanted to come down and watch the show. He called me, but he was still a teenager. I mean, I was barely 21 myself, but
right.
I still looked at him as a young guy. I wasn't, I was interested in, guys my age or older. And so, but he was calling me if I wanted to come down. I never went down. To see a show. And then time goes by, and here it is now, 1988, almost 2 years had passed. And I go in and I audition for this one character on the show. And while I'm in the room, they kept saying, the nanny, the nanny, the nanny. The producers are all, the nanny, the nanny. And then I'm like, what's the nanny? And then they're like, oh, okay. And then they tell the cast director, takes me out of the room. She goes, okay, you're not getting this part. She said, but we would like you to come back next week and audition for a character that's called the nanny. And it's going to be a recurring character. And that's the role we would like you to come back and audition for. And so she material for that. So I came back the next week and I auditioned for the nanny, and the character's name was Julie. So
did you take that as a sign?
all the producers again, and Kirk was in the room. And so I did my audition with Kirk. And when I walked in, Kirk was all excited to see me. And I was excited to see him. He's a couple years older now. And so I'm like, hi. And he goes, hi. And it was like, we hadn't seen each other. And they're like, oh, you know each other? And I'm like, yeah, we met at a car show. and so and I was like, I was there signing autographs for Playboy, and he was there signing autographs for Growing Pains. And so they knew immediately. They knew.
So like every interaction that you guys had, Playboy came up. So it was never a surprise.
It was not secret. There was no secret. I wasn't hiding it. And so
right.
So I auditioned for the show. I wound up getting the role. And for the first couple episodes, it was great. You know, we got along really great.
Uh-huh.
And then this was in the fall of 1988. And then we go over Christmas break. And when I came back from Christmas break, he had become a born again Christian. And from literally like a couple episodes, everything was great. And then come back after break. And it was like, he wouldn't talk to me. He's like, he wouldn't talk to anybody. And it was just completely a different person. And he would just go off by himself. He would play Christian songs on the guitar and literally, it was just like, he didn't want to talk to any of us. He thought we were all sinners and we're all going to hell. And that was it. It was just the strangest.
So for you on the set, your reality and the reality of all the other cast of the show was the same. You weren't separate. It wasn't like you were separate. It was that he was not interacting with anyone because no one was Christian enough to hang out with.
You know, it's like he found God, even though God was never lost. Or he.
Thank God, Kirk found God. That's funny.
But so, and it was, and I'm a Christian. But not once did they ever ask me.
Yeah, but he wasn't a Christian. He was a Kirkstian.
It was a whole different, alien thing that took place. So that's what happened. And then I did, several more episodes, but he just kept getting more and more and more and more and more further back and further, he withdrew more and more and more. And we got along so great in the beginning, and we were really good together. We had, good chemistry, especially, knowing each other, but it just went from A to Z.
Well, how did you find out? How did they take you? Did they take you aside? Was it a call from your agent?
Nope. We did an episode where we were on a cruise ship, and where he announces to everybody that he was in love with me and he wanted to marry me. And so we were on this ship. We're really on a cruise ship, by the way. The cruise people hated us. They hated us because we took their face on the cruise ship. And they didn't told, oh, you can't go over here because there's filming going on right now. They did not like that. So I was miserable. I kept getting seasick. I kept putting them patches. Back then, the Dramamine thing was patches. Put them on back behind your ear, and I'd be good with the seasickness when I had the patch on. But then all of a sudden, my eyesight would just go so blurry, get me like, off. And so I was like, like the whole time. I was like, this is miserable. I never want to be on a cruise ship again my whole life. And we're on 10 days. So at one of the ports, we were finished filming, and I wanted to fly home from Mexico from there on that last port. I didn't want to have to take the cruise ship all the way back to California. I wanted to get off and fly home. And I was so seasick and upchucking so badly the night before that I overslept. And so, but I didn't know that I overslept. I woke up and I looked out my little porthole and I saw the land. I was like, oh, good. We're almost there. I can go home. I'm back. And I looked out the window. The land's further away and further away and further. We were leaving. It ported in and we'd already docked out. I was stuck. It was awful. And then I found out that Kirk and the executive producer, Dan, had gotten off and they flew home from there. Do you know how mad I was? Nobody came and woke me up.
Oh, yeah. And so when did you find out that you weren't a part of the show anymore?
This is when,
because wasn't Julie supposed to be like, he loved you, you were going to get married, you were going to be the wife.
Yep. So this is what happened. So so then I was like, why didn't they knew I was so sick. Why didn't they take me with them? And I couldn't figure it
Yeah.
out. Excuse me. And I thought, something's wrong. And I was right. So I guess they discussed it on their flight home. And he didn't want me on that show. And he was not going to re-sign contracts for the last 2 seasons of the show if they kept me. So he was so adamant about not having me on the show, not marrying my character and the whole deal. And my character was really popular. And we were popular, as a TV couple kind of thing. And
there was a lot of publicity around the time. For those of you who don't remember, there was only 3 networks. This was a really popular show.
Yeah.
Your addition to the cast and like him getting married, because he was like the kind of Michael J. Fox of that show.
Yeah.
Like he had broken out. It was like a really big story, and you were on TV Guide and covers everywhere with you and him.
And so with all of that, so we came back from break, and Playboy had asked me to do a pictorial, and I said no. And they lowballed so bad on the money that I was like, I'm not doing this. Like I can do, episodes of a TV show make more money. That's like the no. And so, suppose the negotiations were going on. And all of a sudden a pictorial was out, and the editor didn't tell me. Like she was talking to my managers, my agents, and everybody. Not once did they mention that there was a pictorial coming out already. Like they'd asked me to do it, but they had one ready to go.
They just used pictures that they had in the library of you.
Yep. So they just used old pictures. So I didn't pose for it. It was just, they just used old stuff, and they had the right to do that. I didn't get paid for it. It was just, they had the right to reuse and rehash my pictures anytime. So that's what they did. And then, the next thing you know, it's like, oh, great. So it's all over the press, about it. I get a call, go on David Letterman's show to do an interview. And I was like, what? Like the publicity people from Playboy called and asked if I would go on Letterman.
Oh, Playboy wanted you on Letterman. Okay.
So I'm like, what pictorial? And they're like, I said, I turned it down. I'm not doing it unless they come up with, more money. And then, and I remember the publicity person telling me, it's already out. I'm like, what? So that was how I found out the pictorial came out. So then it's all over the news, all over the press and the tabloid junk and stuff. And then I go back to work on growing pains like a week later. Mm-hmm. So it's like one whammy.
How long was all of this happening? Within 2-3 weeks, like this period of time?
Yep. All within like, just like this.
Just over fast. The Christmas break.
Okay. No, this is in the summer into the fall when we're coming back from, summer break. Okay. And the little hiatus, the TV shows take. And so we'd been on a little hiatus after the cruise ship thing where he asked me to get married. And so my next episodes were supposed to be getting married. And so I come back for this next season now. And this is in the fall of 1989 now. And so I literally get back to the show and I'm like, happy to see everybody. Hi. And I noticed they had my set. I had a set. I had my own apartment on the show, and they were breaking my apartment stuff down. And I thought that was weird, right?
Yeah, that's the funniest thing in this business is when the sets start coming down, it's usually before anyone else knows. Yeah.
So I see that, but I get the script and I go off, and I'm sitting and reading the script, and I read the script and I'm written off the show. Like they wrote it so that I Dear John him at the altar, and that's how they wrote me off the show. And then they have me.
And that's how you found out, is reading the script? Was it at the table read?
Right before the table read. I literally had just gotten the script that morning. I got there, I read the script, we were just about to sit down to the table read and find out I'm written off the show. And then I'm like,
Holy shit. What does your heart do? I mean, how do you deal with that?
I go over to Shannon, who was the girl that her dad was one of the writer producers, Tim. And so I go over to Shannon. She had the phones, we had, back then there was no cell phones. So, we had one phone set, and the girl that always sat there was one of the writer producer's daughters. And she was my buddy on the show, who I hung out with all the time. And I go over to her and I call from that phone. I called my managers and I said, I'm written off the show. And he's like, no, you're not. Like, your schedule, we have you, it's recurring for the whole season. We have a contract. And I'm like, no, they wrote me off the show. I just read the script. I'm in such shock. I don't even know how to react. And I'm crying, but in shock. And so I told him I was written off the show, and he was just shocked. No words from my managers, no words from my agents, nothing. We didn't know. I didn't know. And that's how I found out. I had to read the script to find out on the set that I'm written off the show.
So for those of you who don't know, the way a sitcom works, it's one of my favorite schedules in the world. For our show, it was Monday through Friday. What was Growing Pains? So on Monday, you all gather, you have a cup of coffee, you have a script, you read the script at the table for the very first time, and then you go and you do some blocking with the director, and then you go home early, and then the next day you've got a completely different script where all the writers have made different jokes and stuff, and then you do that throughout the rest of the week until you shoot it on Friday. So at Monday morning, you find out that you've been written off the show.
Yeah.
And you've got the whole week that you still have to work together with them, unless, did they pre-tape you on the Thursday? Did you do the live show where you're leaving?
No. So this was like during the week. And then, so the next week we were coming back to actually, do the filming part. And so my grandpa was really, really sick at the time, and he was dying. And so I flew to North Carolina, where my grandparents lived, and to be with my granddaddy, and knowing that it was going to be my last time seeing him, so it was tough. And then I get back and I'm on set, and we are filming my first scene that I actually had to film. We had to pre-film a Dear John letter scene. So that was before the actual filming for the show. We had to pre-film because it was like an insert shot of me reading off this Dear John letter to him. And so I had to pre-film that, and I'm reading off the Dear John letter, and one of the producers comes up to me, and I was bawling, crying. I had a lot to cry about, a lot.
Horrible week.
So I just come back and find out I'm written off the show by reading it, and just literally, just to put it all in context, it's like I just gotten back on a red-eye flight. I went straight from the airport, by the way, to the set. And so that morning, so I get there and I'm reading the script, find out I'm written off the show, call my manager agent, and then I had to go and do the pre-film little Dear John letter insert shot, get there, and I'm reading the letter, and the producer walks up to me. I'd already shot the scene a couple of times, and he walks up and he goes, you know how you feel about your grandfather dying right now? He goes,
no.
And to pretend that your grandfather just died, and that's what we want. Okay? And he says it with a big smile. Okay, that's what we want. And walks away. I was just like,
that is
it's still
fucking horrible. That is horrible.
Still lingers in my head. I will never, ever forget it nor forgive it, because it's unforgivable.
No.
That someone tells you.
No, it's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. As an actor, you pull from your real life, but you don't have someone come over, director or no, and say, abuse yourself.
That your dying relative just died. Like what? That's the type of producer. It was like, I don't want to be on the show at this point. Now I'm like,
no kidding.
I'm really done now. If that's like I was checked out at that point. And so I finished, did the job that week. We filmed the show, and we had to pre-film another section where I'm walking down. It's supposed to be a few months later after I Dear John him, and he spots me across the street, and I'm walking down into a subway, and that's how I disappeared. It was like I went from being his girlfriend, him announcing to everyone he loves me, to the next episode was a wedding episode, him dreaming that, he's getting married to me. And then he finds out I Dear John him at the altar. And then it's supposed to be 3 months has passed and he sees me walking down into a subway. It's like the weirdest,
man,
corrupt and so poorly executed, on their behalf for getting me off.
Yeah.
But the fans really liked that character. My character was like this nerd girl who made Mike, his character was Mike, made Mike Seaver study. I was the nerd girl.
Uh-huh.
I was conservative. I didn't look like a Playboy bunny, although all those fans were tuning in to see what that bad girl looked like.
Sure.
And so.
Well, let me ask you, going back to, okay, so on a TV show, what'll usually happen, especially a show that's long running, is the producers and writers, they have this conversation with Kirk about getting rid of this character. Then they figure out how they're going to do it. The writers figure it out. Then you've got Alan Thicke and all the people that are members of the cast that they were probably called the night before saying, we're just to let you know, we're going to do this, meaning that you're the only one that doesn't know. How did the rest of the cast deal with you as far as that? Were they standoffish? Were they like, sorry this happened? Or how did it go with like Alan? Because I worked with Alan. I know Alan.
I know.
I helped Alan get the job on Growing Pains.
Yeah.
I was the guy that was there during his screen test. I was reading with him off camera. So it's like.
I liked Alan a lot. Alan was a good dude. I liked all the cast, actually, and I'm still friends with some of the cast. I still hang out with them. However, at the time, it was like, that was just, they're moving forward. Like everybody was celebrating. Here I am finding out this week after having the producer tell me to pretend my dying grandpa just died, and then finding out I'm written off the show. They, in turn, the entire cast and crew was celebrating because they just found out that everybody in the cast re-signed for the next 2 seasons because Kirk was the one holding it up, and they were worried and wondering if he was going to re-sign. He only
so they just got paychecks for the next 2 years.
Yes. So once we were filming that episode and they had that script in hand that I was written off the show, then he re-signed for the last 2 seasons. So they were all celebrating. So they're celebrating. They're all happy. Can't blame them. They're all happy. Their show's picked up for seasons. Everybody re-signed. And anytime I'm like, I'm just.
Did anybody come to you and say a kind word about what happened after the table read? Or did they just kind of like go Julie blind where they couldn't see you?
No, everybody was just avoiding it, I think. It's like, everybody wants to be, another bad apple in the cart upsetting it. You know what I mean? The girl.
Okay, so when you're on a TV show like this, and especially because of the 2-year pickup, and you're going to be his wife, you're not out of your mind to think about, okay, well, I'm on this show for the next couple of years. This is what my life is like. So now, all of the people in your life, all the managers and agents and everything, they finally catch up and find out what's going on. What was your plan at that point? What did you think to do after this was going on?
I really didn't know. I was just so upset and kind of just, hit over the head with it so fast. I know I commiserated with a girl who answered the phones all the time, Shannon, I was upset, and, she was my, little buddy, and she's pissed off. She was the one who would tell me like what was going on behind the scenes, because her dad, I knew, was upset, and, some of the writers, and I'm still really close to her dad and another one of the writers from the show to this day, because I knew that they were on my side about it and upset as
right.
And the casting directors.
Yeah, writers don't like it when actors decide to change whole arcs that the writers have been working on because they were writing all summer long. I mean, actors go away, but the writers write.
Yeah. And then the casting director, she left the show. She wound up going and she wound up being the casting director for Beverly Hills 90210. And so right after that, she cast me. I got cast in an episode of Beverly Hills 90210, and it was because of her. And she's the one, she goes, I didn't like what they did. She was mad. She was really upset about how they handled writing it.
Well, you were saying that obviously the fans were upset, but it was like a big thing in the media and everything. It was like, what is going on with Kirk Cameron, because he was the star of the show, and they kind of cast you as this evil woman with boobs. Somehow those took over the network, and that was it.
Show. It backfired on them. And the casting director, she told me about it because I went to do 90210, and she was so mad about what happened. She goes, the fan mail has just been flooding in. She goes, they're upset. The fans are really upset because they brought in his girlfriend, who became his wife on the show, to, as this new girl.
Was she the girlfriend before she was cast, or did they meet on the show?
No, they met at church. And she used to go, well, before that, she was his girlfriend in real life. And I guess her and John didn't work out. And anytime she met Candace Cameron, and she met Kirk's mom and found out where they went to church. And then she started going to that church, and then her and Kirk got together. And then she became his new girlfriend on the show. And then in real life became his wife. And then, but the show, I guess.
What a coincidence.
So the show, trying to keep those Playboy fans, I guess, was dressing her really sexy on the show. Like she was wearing midriff things, and like sexy, and she's really pretty. And so all of a sudden it was like the fans, they were ready like to lynch it, but they did not like it because it represented to them the cheerleader that took away the guy that they liked. And they looked at my character like one of them. I was the nerdy girl. And all of a sudden they're dressing Kirk's girlfriend, wife, in real life, sexy. I didn't dress sexy on the show. And my character was conservative. So that what the producers were trying to do, it backfired on them big time. Backfired. So they had me come back. They hadn't paid out my contract yet. And
I didn't know this. Okay. What happened?
So I had my contract hadn't been paid out yet. And the backlash that they got from the fans, they were so upset that my character was just gone. And all of a sudden this hot girl was on the show, getting my guy, their guy, and they didn't like it. So it didn't make any sense the way they abruptly wrote me off with the Dear John letter and disappearing down a subway. And so I had to come back. They forced me contractually. I had to go back. They hadn't paid out the contract yet. And which the payout on the contract, by the way, just so people know, you don't make the money that you're supposed to make on the show. You get like half of it, for the episode. Yeah,
there's a guarantee. You're only guaranteed a certain amount of episodes per cycle.
Yes.
And back then it was maybe a 7 out of 13 deal.
Yep.
Where you're only guaranteed to be in 7 episodes out of every 13 they make. So yeah, you're not making what you would be if you were on the show.
So it sucked. So I go, and I'm forced to come back, and they made me the waitress on their episode. They're having their romantic couple dinner out, and I walk up in this fancy restaurant that they go to, and I'm the waitress. And then he's freaks out. He comes back to the restaurant, and I mean, another poor way of writing my character back in and back off, because it's like they had me coming in like I'm serving him, like, weird.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and such a chauvinistic thing to, make me the waitress who's waiting on him and his new girlfriend, his new sexy hot girlfriend. It was weird. And so he comes back at the end of the night of my shift, and I had to explain to him the Dear John letter and why it was best that we weren't together.
Oh God! Because again, your fault. It wasn't like Mike Seaver dumped you like
Yeah,
Kirk did in real
yeah.
life. He
Right.
was the egregious
So
party.
I had to, in that episode, explain to him the Dear John letter and why it was best that we weren't together as a couple. And then they decided last second to ask one of the guys who worked on our set to go sit in the background in the restaurant at a table. It was like, oh, there's a guy way back there and he's waiting for me.
Uh-huh.
And it was insinuated that Julie has moved on and she got a new boyfriend and he's back there waiting on her. She's okay. It was the most poor, and that was even
Oh my
vision,
God!
Patrick. It was so like weird.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. But we also teach kids. We have a great class called the Youth Weekly class that's every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. And it's for kids. It's for like 10 to 17. And we have a great group of kids right now, and it is ongoing. So if you know someone that wants to get into acting and has never done any acting but would love to try, why don't you have them try starting off with Youth Weekly? Just go to workingactorsschool.com and check us out. It's Youth Weekly every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Act 3, present day.
You know, I was doing research for the show here, and I couldn't get over how many people we kind of knew in common. First of all, thank you for telling the whole growing pains thing. Yeah, I did work with Alan Thicke. I was the announcer at WB when Kirk went to do his own TV show, and so I must have done about 400. Coming up next on Kirk. And so I announced his show. You were on a show called Robin's Hoods, which starred Linda Pearl. Now, I didn't know Linda was in that show. My wife and I bought a home from Linda Pearl. We bought her home.
Kidding.
We bought her home up in Beverly Glen.
I love Linda.
Linda's wonderful. And so
is phenomenal. Like a phenomenal.
What's that?
Our 6 degrees of separation is phenomenal.
Well, I mean, obviously, Jill Tereshita, you, Ava Fabian with Ski School, and then also in Terminal Entry. I don't know if you know her. I barely knew her. We had just one scene together. It was, what was her name here? Barbara Edwards. Yeah. Did you ever know Barbara? Yeah. Okay. So Barbara Edwards was also in Terminal Entry. I did. And it's like just all these crazy people. And then, was this before or after was Big Bad Mama 2?
Oh, this was... Big Bad Mama 2 was my first movie that I ever did with Roger Corman. That was my very first.
Right. And so Danielle, who plays your sister, Danielle Brisbois, we've known each other since we were kids. And so it's like so many little kind of connectors.
Cameron, we're both friends with Dean Cameron.
That's right. Yes. Dean and I from summer school and ski school and every school movie that we did. Now, okay, so you obviously we've talked about this. We've almost spent a whole hour just talking about just this one job, and you've got such a big career. Not to mention that. So you're a playmate. So what is that like when you're like living? You were living at the mansion basically next door for like what 10 years?
Yeah, and
you were in that group. And there's a movie that I absolutely love called The House Bunny. Do you know that movie? Yeah. Do you like that movie? How do you feel about that movie?
One of my friends wrote that movie. My friend Karen McCullough wrote that movie. She also wrote
Karen McCullough? Her name is McCullough?
Yeah. Her name is Karen McCullough. And she also wrote Legally Blonde. She wrote 10 Things I Hate About You. She wrote The Ugly Truth.
She's a good writer.
Great writer. That's just one of my friends. And then in that movie, that they filmed a lot of that at the mansion, actually, which was funny. And and then what else? Melissa Gilbert. I'm really, really close to Melissa. I did a movie with Melissa when I was really young, and still friends with Melissa.
Oh my God.
I saw Melissa last fall even, because she lives in New York, so I go up there a lot. And she anyway, she and I have so many mutual friends that it's just funny. You and I
Yeah.
are connected in so many ways. If we ever got married,
So,
it would be the best.
well, we are married on low budget. In low budget movies, we're married. We have two
Yeah,
kids. God bless them. I don't know where they are
I
anymore.
do. I stand.
But what was it like really being like, because you're surrounded. I used to drive my son to school and we passed the Playboy Mansion every day. And so it's just literally sitting in a beautiful part of Los
Yeah, Palm Beach.
Angeles. And it was a gorgeous house in Holmby
Yeah, Home
Hills.
Wheels.
And so you're living there. And I would imagine, I'm imagining that once you're a playmate, it's a different world than what we think. So what's the real deal?
Well, for me, I did Playboy, and then I went right into TV and film, and I wasn't doing anything with them. I did some car shows that first year that I was a playmate, and I'm signing on as a
Mhm.
playmate. But after that, I was so busy working and filming TV that I was going to the mansion on a regular basis. I'd go up there on the weekends and sometimes during the week, but I wasn't really doing any work with them. It was in my 30s that I actually went back to work for Playboy in my 30s. So
Okay.
after,
What did you do when you came back? What was the job you were
well,
doing?
I came back doing, we did a 50 city tour of the US, and they wanted to recreate for the anniversary of the company, the old Playboy clubs. And so they put 10 girls dressed in bunny outfits on a tour bus. We had the ZZ Top tour bus. They just put a wrap on it with the Playboy Bunny logos, and we toured the United States and we would just go basically just as like figureheads, in the bunny outfits, pictures
Uh-huh.
with fans and signing autographs. And I became the announcer at each one of those venues. And so I would announce who all the bunnies were, their info. I would announce all the information on, the sponsors, and thanking them and thanking the city and the locations. And really it was all just because I was the older and more experienced of all
Right.
and
So this goes to a question I was going to ask later, but maybe this is
what,
the answer. I was always curious how you got started in stand up. Was it this job that kind of let you see that you were good at,
no,
being up on
no,
stage and
I
no?
moved to,
Oh, okay.
I had 3 homes pretty much. The Playboy Mansion was like my, place I was always going. And I was taking classes at the Improv Comedy Club with Bill Hudnett. And it was all comedians in my classes. And I was at the Improv Comedy Club on a regular basis for years and years, took classes
Hmm.
there. And then in that group, I met a magic magician, a magician comedian, so do magic. And
Uh-huh.
he asked me to join their troupe. So we had this group of people. It was magic comedy, slapstick, very vaudeville in style. And Larry Wilson and the Hellhounds, Larry Wilson and the Flying Confetti. And so then my third home away from home was the Magic Castle in Los Angeles. So I was always at the Magic Castle. And we would tour the old vaudeville circuit with this group. I would tour all over the old vaudeville theaters. And we also did Dick Clark
Uh-huh.
Live on TV with the Magic Comedy Group. I did Disney's New Vaudevillians with the Magic Comedy Troupe. It's Fritz. We do all these different shows. So,
Right.
and it was even in TV Guide for that. So it was my roots were comedy. And so when I did that tour, I finished the tour and I got offered a play in Canada. And so then I went up to do a show in Canada for a few months, and in Calgary, Canada, at a theater there. And so I did the play for a few months, and I came back and I was divorced, and I thought I didn't have representation anymore. I didn't have anything. I was like, because I'd just been working some boy bunny, and I got married, got divorced, and
Right.
I was like, I need to start over. And I thought, well, I need to start at my roots, which was comedy. So I started going back to the comedy clubs, seeing all the comedians I knew from my youth, and all the playmates on that 50-city tour were calling me the funny bunny, because I would get up and I would just crack jokes the whole time. I was up there with a microphone. I'm announcing everything, crack jokes about what city I'm in, club, girls. I had nicknames for all of them. Money Bunny, do anything for Money Bunny. Drunk Bunny, Drunk Bunny. One of them, Blue Balls Bunny. She would leave a porch muck with blue balls every stop we did. Get some, get nothing. It was like we'd watch some poor guy like slobbering, thinking he was going to get somewhere, and so that was Blue Balls Bunny. So I had nicknames for all of them. So they called me the Funny Bunny. And so when I started going back to the comedy clubs after I got back from that tour and finished the play and then came back, and I was like, I need to start over. It's like a do-over, but I need to just get back at it. And so I started going back to the comedy clubs, and then the comedian friends of mine were like, get up, introduce my show, tell a joke, Funny Bunny. And so I would. I'd get up, tell one joke, two jokes, three jokes. I was in my 30s. And then I built up an entire routine. And then Bud, who was one of the owners of the Improv Comedy Club, came out to see me.
Yeah, Bud Yorkin.
And he was like, who books you, kid? And I was like, well, I was like, I
let me get her on the phone. Hi, it's me.
He's like, I want to put you in the comedy clubs. And so he put me in Vegas. He put me in, we just, different casino type improv comedy clubs. And he just told me, he said, you're unique, you're different. He said, there's no Playboy Playmates out there doing stand-up comedy. He said, you got the market cornered, kid. And
right. Well, I have to say, I haven't seen you in person. And again, doing research, I pulled up a couple of spots that you did that's on YouTube. And I know you, I know what you're capable of, but I was so excited and surprised at how good you are and how good you are with the audience, because that to me is where a comedian can live or die. Your jokes are always going to be your jokes, but if you don't have a relationship with an audience, you're not going to get to that. And you're so natural and so connected to the audience that I can see why someone like Bud would pull you aside, because that's, I think, what's special. And I think you do that very, very well.
I'm almost 60 years old now, and I'm still doing stand-up. Can you believe that much time? Oh,
well, I mean, you're really good at it.
I love it because I could be myself. I didn't have to curb my accent. And yes, I do have an accent. I'm Southern. I've lived in.
What? Wait, hold on. This whole time?
I know. You knew I.
Okay, so now I'm jumping all the way around, but let's go back to the Playboy Playmate, to the mansion. So you're there at the mansion. What is it like? Take the people behind the scenes, and is it? I'll even frame it. When you guys have a party, is it one type of place versus when it's just the place where everyone is hanging out?
I think it was just a place that we hung out. Been so many horror stories coming out now, and girls, saying all this stuff about and they all are trying to write books. They're all trying to sell stories. They were all his girlfriends who wanted to be playmates. Some he made playmates, some he didn't. They all have agendas. Mm-hmm. All the rest of us, hundreds of us, by the way, are going, that didn't happen. We didn't have to sleep with Hef to be a playmate. That never happened. I never slept with him. I never slept with any of his friends. Not once the entire time of all the years of being there. Not once was I ever offered drugs there. Not once. Nothing. So I have this whole anger going on inside my head over all these women that are coming out with all these horror stories about stuff. It's like they all have agendas. They just want attention. They want their 15 seconds. For every one of them, there are, hundreds of us who are like, we know the real story on them girls. If we want to do a tell-all, how about I just do a tell-all about a lot of those chicks who were in the interviews on A&E and all their, stuff. I was like, that's not true. It's not true, and that's not true. It just makes you mad, because I'm like, it's like somebody asked me one time at one of my comedies. She goes, "So, what was it like? What was it like sleeping with F?" I didn't sleep with F. Like, sleep with him. Like, No.
Now, I just want to make it clear because I know that there's people out there wondering and are, just because it is that people will want to know. I myself didn't never slept with
Yeah,
Hef
I know.
either. So both you
But
and I,
they would
I
say
never
to me,
slept with him.
blonde.
So
You're blonde. I'm like, yeah, I'm blonde. Dude, that don't mean I'm a crackhead. I'm like, come on. What?
okay, so you're there at the Playboy Mansion. It's famous for having these parties, which are like lots and lots of people, lots of famous people come, lots of famous people hang out. Who was your favorite famous person that would hang out at the mansion with you
There's a
guys?
bunch. There's so many famous people, but I'm such a nerd. Like, I like artists and uh, Leroy Neiman. Leroy Neiman, who's like one of the greatest.
Wow.
I'm such a fan. And Leroy Neiman, I met at the Playboy Mansion. I was just like, that's just like my dumbstruck moment, I mean, we know a lot
Right.
of actors. It's like a lot of my friends who were actors became really famous, so I don't really get actors as much as like, being some big famous person. I look at more like the artists and the writers and the artists and the comedians and people that I got to meet there. Extraordinary. So
Right.
many, because
Okay, so then the opposite of that is who was the scummiest or the worst person that ever came to the mansion?
I don't know about. I don't know. I mean, there's been so many people kicked off the property, never to return again. It's like because of bad behavior.
Is there any legendary stories of like there's this one guy that like no one would
Oh,
have back?
I got a good story for you. It got so good. It was the
Okay.
best joke ever played on Hugh Hefner, ever. He swore literally for the best joke ever played on him. There was this guy, Bob Zamuda. And Bob Zamuda was this comedian that he was out with Jim Carrey because they were going to be doing the Man in the Moon, the story of Andy Kaufman.
Right. Bob Zamuda is also very famous for having worked with
Yes,
Andy
that's
Kaufman.
why.
And
So he's
okay,
this
okay.
character, that was, the Andy Kaufman character, Bob Zamuda did. And so since Jim Carrey was playing him, Jim Carrey called and said, hey, I want to come up, to the mansion. And so, and, I'm going to come up as this character, and so like, okay, sure. So he comes up and he's at a party and he's so.
Was this the Tony Clifton
Tony
character?
Clifton. Tony Clifton showed up and he's insulting everybody and like saying the rudest, terrible things and like the whole time and like all of a sudden they get a phone call from security. Jim Carrey is here at the gate. And they're like, no, Jim Carrey's already here. He's dressed up as, the Tony Clifton character. They're like, no, I'm looking at the real Jim Carrey now. And they're like, send him up. So the security all comes around and they surround the Tony Clifton character. Like, who are you? It's not Jim Carrey. And Jim's like, I don't know. I'm just showing up. And so then the whole thing it was the funniest thing. And so then the next day, it's like on the Sunday, this is on a Saturday party. And then Sunday, they come over for the Sunday night dinner. And it was Bob Zamuda and Jim Carrey. They did it as a practical joke on Hef. Hef laughed and said it was the best joke ever played on him ever because he'd been listening.
He thought for sure it was Jim Carrey.
It wasn't.
And
It was Bob Zamuda. It was the funniest joke ever played. And so that's one of my
Oh
funny.
my
I
God.
thought it was hilarious.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, my name is Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV. And I also have this acting school called Working Actors School. And what we do there is we teach people to act using Zoom. So you can take an acting class with me and with a person in Connecticut, in Florida, and San Diego all at the same time, thanks to the miracle of Zoom. Now, besides classes, I also offer a one-on-one session. It's an hour just between you and me working on a particular piece of material, whether it's for an upcoming audition or maybe you're working on something and you need to have that breakthrough moment. These are really, really fun, and they're really, really great because they're really personalized and intense in all the good ways that intense can be. So if you're working on something, if you want to break through, if you want to have a one-on-one session where you're not working with other people, this is the way to do it. All the information is in the classes page on workingactorsschool.com.
Act 4. Questions.
We have a couple of questions here towards the end of you like so many stories. We could go for another hour. That's showbiz. So what's your most Hollywood
Ooh.
moment that you've had in your whole life?
Let me think. Well, I did the Golden Girls, and I show up on my very first day for the table read, and I was late. I was late getting to set. Apartment manager at the time, and I had a lot of little old ladies in my building, and one of them had gotten hurt, so I had to take her to the hospital that morning. And so anyway, I just had time to change out of my bloody clothes, and she was, by the way, just a little side note, and but then went down to the set, and I walk in and everybody's already sitting down. They're just about to start the table read. And I'm like, sorry, I'm late. It was like crickets. I'm walking in, everybody's staring at me like I got the plague, and I'm showing up late. And they hadn't started yet, but they just was about to start. And then I was like, I'm sorry, I'm late, y'all. And everybody's just staring at me, not saying anything. And then all of a sudden, Betty White burst out. My character was called Mary on the show, and my got knocked up. And I was playing the 16-year-old character on the show who gets knocked up. My daddy kicked me out, and the Golden Girls took me in. That was the storyline for the show. So I moved in with the Golden Girls on the show. So I walked in and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm late. And before I couldn't even say, I got a really good excuse, And Betty White pipes up out of the just dead silence and says, why, Mary, you're pregnant. Of course you're late. And the entire group just laughter. And that, it was like comedy magic. I got saved by a comedy queen. I got saved.
That is a great story. Betty White saves your ass. I love it.
She saved me just so fast. And then somebody offers me the empty chair next to them. And I sit down and they pat me on my shoulder like, you're okay. Like, because they knew Betty White just saved me. So that was a comedy. That was a magic moment for me.
That's a great story. Okay, so the next one is show me the money. What is your biggest missed financial opportunity? Because we get money in this business, and sometimes you have opportunities. Sometimes you take them, sometimes you don't. What's your biggest one that you look back on and go, oh,
I got a couple.
okay.
I got cast in this TV show as a recurring character called Drexel's Class with Dabney Coleman. And I was playing the Southern Swanky secretary on the show, Rosie. And so I got cast in that. And at the same time, just prior to that, I got cast in this movie called Round Trip to Heaven, which I renamed One Way Ticket to Hell. And Corey Feldman and Zach Galligan. And at the same time, I got cast in this thing that ABC was starting to do. It was like a Saturday Night Live, but it was ABC Live. And it was comedy sketches, with characters and that type of thing. And they just started the show mostly with comedians. And I got cast to be a new character on that show, like a Saturday Night Live thing. But
Was that called Fridays?
No, it was called ABC Live. And
Okay.
And then at the same time, I got cast as a recurring character on another show called Harry and the Hendersons, and I was playing the Swedish au pair girl. I said, "You want some kålsoppa med frikadella head? My character was, supposed to be speaking Swedish, which I didn't know at all, and
Right.
in a Swedish au pair girl next door, and playing Noah Blake's girlfriend on the show.
Another friend of mine, an amazing, Noah and I knew each other. And Bruce Davidson played my dad in a movie, who played the dad in Harry and the Hendersons.
Well, Bruce Davidson story then for you, because they offered me a regular role on the show. They asked me to be a regular on Harry and the Hendersons, but it wasn't paying very much because that was a really super low budget show. And so I was like, well, I'm doing this movie and I'm doing this other TV show. I got cast in Drexel's Class with Debbie Coleman as a recurring, and I got cast in this ABC. I got cast in all these shows, literally like all at the same time. This was happening, and I was like, oh, this is awesome, because I was really happy to be working and a variety of things, and I really wanted to do the ABC comedy show because it was like shtick, like I could play characters and be myself too, and so my manager said, no, like, we can't take it. The money's so low. You'll be losing all the money from these other shows, which pay more. So we said no to the regular on Harry and the Hendersons. And Bruce Davidson had said to me, he said, he just wants a big award, like for, a big award for a movie. And he's like, I can't do other movies. And I just got this, hi, Kit Kat. This is Kit Kat. Hi.
Hi, Kit Kat.
Really? You don't want to be on screen? Okay. He's like, so anyway, he's telling me how he just got this big award and how, he's stuck doing the show. Like, he can't go and do other movies, even though,
right,
doing this little low budget show. But he said, I'm turning down all these jobs I can't do because I'm doing the show. He said, however, this little low budget show is paying my mortgage. This little low budget show is like going to pay for school for my kids. And he's like, so take the bird in hand. He said this to me. But of course, I was listening to my managers and agents. So I did not take that series regular role, which I should have taken. And I said, no, I'll just do the recurring, but it can't be a regular. So I go away to do the movie. In the meantime, Drexel's Class recast the school principal, and I was her secretary. And they that I was gone away doing the movie because they had written me in on episodes that same couple of weeks I was away doing the movie, and that I couldn't do. So they were mad. So I got right off the show. Then ABC Live, I think it only did they may have aired like 1 or 2 episodes, but the next episode, which was supposed to be my first episode, the show was canceled. So the show was canceled the week before I was to start on the show. So I did the stupid movie Round Trip to Heaven.
Right.
There's nothing heavenly about it. And then I lost Drexel's Class because I was away doing Round Trip to Heaven. I lost ABC Live because it got canceled before I even got an episode. And then they'd already moved on from my storyline on Harry and the Hendersons by the time that we tried to go back to revisit it. So I lost the entire series. I should have listened to Bruce Davidson.
And that show, I think that even though it was a low budget show, it did run for like 5 years. So it would have been a really long.
It was totally adorable, that show, Harry.
Yeah.
TV series. I was like, oh.
Okay, so next question up is show and tell. As a teenager, your favorite poster in your room, and how'd you come to obtain it?
Oh, as a teenager, I had a poster of Donny Osmond, and it was in his yellow corduroy looking suit or something. I had it for years, even in California. Used to hang it on my refrigerator.
Now, were you a Donny Osmond fan? I mean, was it a Donnie Marie show thing or?
I think it was more because, yeah, I like Donnie and Marie, and I like, anything to do with all that stuff, of course, all
Right.
the 70s, of course. But it was funny because I really wasn't like a big fan of those guys as much as I was a big fan of Joe Namath. I was, for whatever reason, when I was a kid.
Joe Namath was big deal. Yeah, Jets were huge.
He was like,
he was the reason Broadway Joe.
Boom, 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 boom. Like, I loved everything. His eyes were so pretty, and his big clef in the chin. I just liked him so much. His big dimples, and so that was the look that I always liked. For years, that was the look I liked and wanted, and as a boyfriend. And so, anyway, Joe Namath.
That's great.
When I was a kid, in West Virginia, our little classroom had to write letters to famous people as a writing assignment. Mm-hmm. And I wrote one to Joe Namath while the rest of the entire classroom was writing letters to guess what show? On the Prairie. So almost everybody in the entire class wrote letters to Little House on the Prairie cast members to the kids on the show.
That's so funny.
And then I wound up getting a photograph back of Joe Namath. I still have it, my first autograph.
That's nice.
So that was my big teen idol, and I had that picture on the wall.
And then finally, it's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show with Patrick Labyorteaux. So we didn't ever even talk about the movie that we were in together, but you're going to get a chance to talk about 2012 Ice Age, because now on the show, you need to talk to me about how good I was in 2012 Ice Age. Sing my praises or give me a real review of my performance in 2012 Ice Age, which I know everyone knows the movie and it's a huge hit. But if you haven't come across it, it's about an iceberg that's moving at 200 miles per hour and causing the weather to change in the entire world.
Yes.
So please tell me how good I was in 2012.
Okay. In 2012 Ice Age, you were so good and I was so good. We were brilliant, in fact. And obviously because it literally was in the top 10 movies on IMDb, by the way, for that year, just so you know. Not joking.
That's right.
How?
No, we were like our star meters on IMDb. We were like skyrocketed to the top, like in the top 100. And
so my mama was watching it. Just want you to know. And I was like, "Well, did you like it, Mom?" And she's like, "I'm sorry, honey, I fell asleep." Like, it's okay, Mama. I was the star of it.
Yeah, I don't know if I've actually seen the whole movie.
Made it through the entire movie without falling asleep.
We recommend it as a sleep aid for sure.
I feel like it's one of the worst, most boring performance.
Well, I had one note, and I wanted to play that note over and over again.
I fell asleep watching you and I.
Epilogue.
Well, that's the perfect way to end this. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in acting, Working Actors School, where if you're wanting to, be an actor that puts people to sleep, I'm the guy to talk to.
Me too. Rather say.
And Julie is an amazing performer. We didn't talk about your poetry. We didn't talk about any of these other great movies that you did, but we'll have to come back again and do this. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause for Julie McCullough. Yay! Thank you, Julie.
And Patrick. So just quickly, I'm doing some pilot presentations this summer, and that will be running on JC Films Plus, and I've got a slew of movies that Dean Cain and I did together in the last year. Eddie McClintock,
beautiful,
Dean Cain, and myself. Kevin Sorbo's in a couple of them too. We've been doing all these movies, and I got a whole bunch of them coming out, just so you know. And
Do you have a website for like your comedy appearances and all of this type of stuff that we can link in the bio down below?
I know, so that no, I'm on Instagram, or Instacrack as I call it. I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
Crack. You follow me on Instacrack. I'm there. I mean, I'm on Twitter Crack too, but now it's called X. I don't understand all this. I'm not real.
It's good enough to know that you're out there. So we'll link you in the bio down below with all of your socials. And again, thank you so much,
Patrick. Listen, you're the best low budget TV hubby I've ever had.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Hey, everybody, thanks for listening. I'm really, really glad you're here and checking out the podcast. It is an audio podcast wherever you get your podcasts. It's a video podcast over on YouTube or on Spotify or wherever you get the video ones. All of my socials are Working Actors School on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube. Please check us out. If you want any information about the school, it is at workingactorsschool.com. We've got classes going on all the time. And again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.